Commander Zixthara had served in the Galactic Coalition forces for 17 cycles. She had witnessed the crystalline warriors of Nexus Prime dissolve enemy battalions with coordinated precision. She had fought alongside the mighty Crythians, whose exoskeletons could withstand plasma fire that would vaporize lesser species. She had even coordinated with the telepathic mindweavers, who could predict enemy movements 3 steps ahead, but she had never fought beside humans, until Garrison Station fell. The distress beacon had screamed across 6 systems. The Zithian swarm, a hive mind species that consumed everything in its path, had breached the outer defenses. Garrison Station housed 40,000 souls from 17 species, and the swarm was notorious for leaving no survivors. Every coalition ship within range had been ordered to respond. Zixthara's vessel, the Luminous Dawn, arrived alongside a human frigate called the Defiant Spirit. The human ship was smaller, older, its hull scarred from dozens of engagements. As both crews prepared to board the station, Zixthara found herself standing in the deployment bay beside Captain Elena Vasquez and her squad of human marines. They looked fragile. No natural armor, no claws, no biological weapons. They wore mechanical suits and carried chemical-based firearms, primitive compared to the energy weapons most species preferred. Zixthara's mandibles clicked in what her species considered polite concern. "Captain Vasquez," she said through her translator, "perhaps your team should secure the outer sections. My warriors will push toward the core where the heaviest fighting." "With respect, Commander," Vasquez interrupted, checking her rifle with practiced efficiency. "We go where the fighting's thickest. That's what we do." Something in the human's eyes made Zixthara's secondary heart skip a beat. It wasn't bravado, it was something else entirely. The station's interior was a nightmare. The Zithians had already converted 3 decks, their biomass pulsing along the walls like infected tissue. The civilian population had retreated to the core, but thousands of Zithian drones stood between the rescue force and the survivors. The first engagement happened in Corridor 7 Delta. Zixthara's troops took position behind energy barriers, laying down suppressing fire as hundreds of Zithian drones screeched toward them. The creatures were horrifying, all chitinous limbs and snapping mandibles, moving with the single-minded purpose of the hive. The human marines didn't take cover. They advanced. Vasquez's voice crackled over the comm. "First platoon, wedge formation. Second platoon, high-low coverage. Let's clear these bugs a path to hell." What happened next would haunt Zixthara for the rest of her life. The humans moved through the Zithian swarm like a force of nature. They didn't just fight, they refused to stop. When a drone tore through Private Chen's suit, puncturing his lung, he didn't fall back. He jammed a grenade into the creature's thorax and kept firing with his sidearm until the medic pulled him to safety. When Sergeant Okonkwo's rifle jammed, he drew a combat knife, a blade, and held the line in brutal close combat until his weapon was operational again, but it was Corporal Sarah Mitchell who showed Zixthara the true meaning of terror. Mitchell's squad had been cut off, surrounded by 30 drones in a side passage. Through the helmet cam feed, Zixthara watched the young human, barely into her 3rd decade, make a decision. Mitchell's vitals were displayed on Zixthara's screen. Elevated heart rate, adrenaline spiking, cortisol levels that would have incapacitated most species. The human was terrified, and she charged anyway. For the station, Mitchell's scream cut through the comm channel as she activated her suit's overdrive, a function that would burn out the servos but triple her strength for 90 seconds. She became a whirlwind of controlled violence, her combat shotgun roaring, her armored fists crushing chitin when the ammunition ran dry. Her squad rallied behind her, fighting with a ferocity that defied logic. They were outmatched, outgunned, and biology was against them. Yet they fought as if surrender was a concept their species had simply never learned. Zixthara found herself moving before conscious thought caught up. Her elite guards followed, pushing through the Zithian lines to reach Mitchell's position. When they broke through, they found all 6 humans still standing, surrounded by mountains of dead drones. Mitchell was on her knees, her suit's power cell depleted, manually reloading her weapon with hands that trembled from exhaustion. "Took you long enough." "Commander," Vasquez said, appearing through the smoke with the rest of her platoon. There was blood on her armor, some of it human, most of it Zithian. "Core's just ahead. Let's finish this." The final push to the civilian shelter was a blur of plasma fire and chittering death. The Zithians threw everything at them: drones, warriors, even a juvenile queen. The coalition forces fought magnificently, but it was the humans who led the charge, who held the line when it seemed impossible, who turned certain death into improbable victory. When the last Zithian fell and the shelter doors opened to reveal thousands of grateful survivors, Zixathara finally understood. She approached Vasquez as the human captain was being treated for a gash across her ribs. "Captain," Zixathara said quietly, "I must ask. Your species, you felt fear out there. I saw your biometrics. Yet you fought like fear meant nothing." Vasquez looked up, her face pale from blood loss but her eyes sharp. "Fear means everything, Commander. Every species in this galaxy has warriors who don't feel fear, either through biology or training. They're effective, sure." She winced as the medic sealed her wound. "But humans, we feel everything. Every instinct screaming at us to run. Every rational thought telling us we're outmatched. We feel all of it. Then why fight?" Zixathara's translator struggled with the confusion in her voice. "Why not retreat to survive?" "Because those people in that shelter were counting on us." Vasquez stood, testing her mobility. "Because retreat means someone else dies. Because fear isn't a reason to stop, it's just another thing to push through." She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator that had chosen to be protector. "Anyone can be brave when they don't know danger. Real courage is being terrified and doing it anyway." Zixathara thought of Mitchell, fighting on ruined knees with an empty rifle, of Chen firing with a collapsed lung, of every human who had stood in that station and chosen the hard path over the safe one. "I fought beside humans today," Zixathara said softly, "and I learned the meaning of terror. Not from the Zithians we killed, but from the species standing next to me. Any race can create warriors, but only humans create warriors who win because they're afraid, not despite it." Vasquez's smile widened. "Stick with us long enough, Commander, and you'll see worse than this. The difference is, now you know, no matter how bad it gets, humans don't quit. We're too stubborn, too stupid, or too scared to know when we're beaten." She extended her hand in the human gesture of respect. "Welcome to humanity's war doctrine. If you can't win, you make sure the enemy regrets fighting you. And if you can win," her grip was iron despite her injuries, "you make them regret they ever evolved." In the cycles that followed, Zixathara would request human attachments to every major operation she commanded. Other species brought their strengths: the Nexians their precision, the Krathians their power, the Mindweavers their foresight. But the humans brought something far more valuable. They brought hope wrapped in terror. The hope that even in the darkest hour someone would stand, and the terror of knowing that when humans decided to fight, they would drag victory from defeat's jaws with bleeding hands if necessary. Standing beside humans in battle had shown Commander Zixathara the meaning of terror, not the terror of facing death, but the terror of being the enemy when humanity decided enough was enough. And across the galaxy, species learned a simple truth. You could match human technology, predict human tactics, even counter human strategy, but you could never account for the simple, terrifying fact that humans would rather die standing than live kneeling. And that made them the most dangerous warriors in the cosmos, not because they didn't feel fear, but because they did, and they fought anyway.